A Werewolf Shifter Romance by Lena, from Lena's Romance Library. The scent of death clings to everything here. It seeps into the stone walls of the execution grounds, mingles with the morning mist, and settles like a shroud over the gathered crowd. I can taste it on my tongue, metallic and bitter, like copper pennies left in the rain. But beneath it all, fainter now but still achingly familiar, is the scent I've known since I was 17. Pine and earth and wild honey. The scent of the man they're about to kill. My mate. I stand chained to the iron post they've designated for me, my wrists raw and bleeding where the silver-lined manacles bite into my skin. The crowd presses close, their eyes hungry for the spectacle, their voices a dull roar of anticipation that makes my bones ache. They want blood, they want justice, they want to see Kieran die, and they want me to watch. Alara. He calls my name across the courtyard, his voice carrying despite the noise. I lift my head, meeting his eyes across the distance. They're the same warm brown I fell in love with, but now they're shadowed with pain and something that looks like regret. Not for what he's done, he's never regretted fighting for what's right, but for what his choices have cost me. Kieran stands on the platform, his hands bound behind him, his body bearing the marks of weeks in their dungeons. His dark hair hangs in his eyes, matted with blood and grime. His shirt is torn, revealing the ritual scars across his chest that mark him as a born warrior of the Silverwood Pack. Or what used to be the Silverwood Pack, before Beta Marcus Blackthorn decided our Alpha's compassion was weakness and our traditions were obstacles to his ambition. The coup happened on a night when the moon was dark. I should have seen it coming. The whispers in the corridors of our pack house had grown more frequent, more urgent. Kieran had been meeting with other pack members who shared his concerns about Marcus's increasingly violent methods, his disregard for the old laws that protected the weak and the young. When Marcus announced his intention to ally with the Bloodclaw Pack, known for their brutality and their practice of enslaving defeated enemies, Kieran had spoken against him publicly. That was his death sentence. Marcus didn't waste time with subtlety. 3 days later, his loyalists surrounded our home in the early hours of dawn. They dragged Kieran from our bed while I screamed and fought like a wild thing. The last thing I saw before they knocked me unconscious was my mate's face, bloodied but defiant. His lips moving in what I knew was a promise. I will find a way back to you. Now 5 weeks later, I know that promise is one he can't keep. Citizens of the Silverwood Pack, Marcus's voice booms across the courtyard. He stands at the edge of the platform, resplendent in the Alpha's ceremonial robes that he has no right to wear. The golden wolf's head pin that should grace Kieran's chest gleams mockingly on Marcus's collar. Today we rid ourselves of the traitor, who would have seen us destroyed. Kieran Ashwood conspired against the rightful leadership of this pack. He sought to undermine our strength, to make us weak before our enemies. Lies. Every word is a lie, and everyone here knows it. But fear is a powerful thing. Fear of Marcus's retribution. Fear of the Bloodclaw Alliance. Fear of what happens to those who speak against the new order. So they stand silent, or worse, they cheer. The executioner steps forward. He's a massive man from the Bloodclaw Pack, borrowed for this special occasion. His axe gleams silver in the morning light, enchanted to cut clean through werewolf healing. One stroke, and even an Alpha's supernatural resilience won't save Kieran. My wolf claws at the inside of my chest, desperate to shift, to fight, to die protecting her mate. But the silver in my chains burns like acid through my veins, suppressing my other form, keeping me trapped in this weak human body. All I can do is watch and scream, and they know it. That's why Marcus positioned me here, close enough to see every detail, to smell Kieran's fear, though he shows none, to hear his last words. Any final statements, traitor? Marcus asks, his voice dripping with false magnanimity. Kieran straightens his shoulders. Even bound and beaten, even facing death, he carries himself like the alpha he was born to be. His eyes find mine across the crowd, and for a moment, it's just us. Just like it used to be on quiet mornings when we'd run through the forest together, or on winter nights when we'd curl up by the fire in our little cabin, planning a future that will never come. I regret nothing, Kieran says, his voice carrying clearly across the silent courtyard. I stood against tyranny. I fought for those who couldn't fight for themselves. If that makes me a traitor in your eyes, then I'll die proud to be one. A murmur runs through the crowd. Some shift uncomfortably. Others nod, almost imperceptibly. They remember what Kieran stood for. They remember what we've lost under Marcus's rule. And Alara, Kieran continues, his eyes still locked on mine. My heart, my soul, my everything. I'm sorry I couldn't save you from this, but don't let them break you. Promise me. The words are a knife in my chest. How can I promise such a thing? How can I promise to endure when half my soul is about to be torn away? The mate bond pulses between us, that golden thread that's connected us for the past 8 years, and I know that when they sever his life, something in me will die too. Enough sentiment, Marcus snaps. He raises his hand, and the executioner lifts his axe. This is it. This is the moment I've dreaded for 5 weeks. I close my eyes, unable to watch, but Marcus's voice cuts through my despair like a blade. Open your eyes, Alara, he commands, using the alpha voice that compels obedience. My eyes snap open against my will. Watch your mate die. Watch what happens to those who defy me. The axe begins its descent, and then the world explodes. A roar shakes the very foundations of the courtyard, so powerful and primal that everyone, executioner, Marcus, the entire crowd, freezes in terror. The sound comes from beyond the walls, but it's immediately answered by howls from within the crowd itself. Then the gates, heavy oak reinforced with iron, simply disintegrate. They don't break or fall. They're reduced to splinters and dust in the space of a heartbeat. Through the smoking ruins walks a figure that makes my breath catch in my throat. He's tall, taller than any werewolf I've ever seen, with shoulders that speak of barely contained power. His hair is silver white despite his apparent youth, and his skin has the pale cast of someone who spends more time in wolf form than human. But it's his eyes that steal my breath. They're the color of winter ice, pale blue and utterly cold. And when his gaze sweeps across the courtyard, grown alphas take involuntary steps backward. This is no ordinary werewolf. This is something else entirely. Stop, he says. And though he doesn't raise his voice, the word carries with absolute authority. The executioner's axe freezes mid-swing, trembling in his grip. The man tries to complete the motion, straining against some invisible force, but he might as well be trying to move a mountain. The newcomer steps into the courtyard, and I catch his scent on the wind. Ancient forest and winter storms and something wild that predates human civilization. Power radiates from him like heat from a forge, and every werewolf present feels it in their bones. I am Zephyr Nightshade, he announces, and the name sends a collective shudder through the crowd. Alpha King of the Northern Territories, and you, his ice-cold gaze fixes on Marcus, are conducting an illegal execution on disputed land. Marcus's face has gone sheet white, but he rallies quickly. He didn't become beta through cowardice. Your Majesty, he says, offering a shallow bow that somehow manages to convey disrespect. This is pack business. The traitor Kieran Ashwood is mated to a member of my bloodline, Zephyr interrupts. And now his gaze finds me. Those winter eyes seem to see straight through to my soul, and I feel a strange stirring in my chest, as if some sleeping part of me has suddenly awakened. Alara Moonwhisper, daughter of Lydia Nightshade Moonwhisper. My cousin. The words hit me like a physical blow. Cousin? My mother died when I was 3, and I've never known anything about her family. My father told me she came from a distant pack, but he never spoke of relatives, never mentioned the name Nightshade. That's impossible, Marcus snarls. Ilara is common-born, an omega of no significance. The temperature in the courtyard drops 20 degrees in an instant. Frost begins to form on the stone walls, and Zephyr's eyes begin to glow with an inner light that makes everyone present take another step back. Are you questioning my knowledge of my own bloodline? Zephyr asks, his voice soft and more terrifying than any shout. Are you suggesting that I'm mistaken about the scent I've carried in my memory for over 2 decades, since the day my Aunt Lydia left our territory? To mate with a silverwood wolf? Marcus opens his mouth, then closes it again. Even his arrogance has limits, and those limits apparently stop well short of directly contradicting an alpha king who could end his life with a thought. Zephyr turns his attention back to me, and his expression softens fractionally. Hello, cousin, he says, and there's something almost gentle in his voice now. I'm sorry I'm late. I want to respond, but my voice seems to have abandoned me entirely. The revelations are coming too fast. I have family, real family, and not just any family, but royalty. The Alpha King himself has come for me. But why now? Where has he been all these years when I was growing up alone with a father who drank too much and cared too little? As if reading my thoughts, Zephyr continues. I've been searching for you for 3 years, ever since I learned of Lydia's death. Your father was reluctant to acknowledge the connection. But when word reached me of today's events, of Marcus Blackthorn's intention to force you to watch your mate's execution, his eyes glitter with something that might be genuine fury. Well, some family obligations transcend political boundaries. He walks closer to the platform where Kieran still kneels, the executioner's axe still frozen above his head. Zephyr examines my mate with the air of someone appraising livestock, and I feel a growl building in my chest despite the silver burning through my veins. Strong, Zephyr muses. Good bloodlines. Intelligent from what I've heard, and clearly devoted to inspire such loyalty. He looks back at me. You love him. It's not a question, but I nod anyway. More than life itself. And you, Kieran Ashwood, Zephyr addresses my mate directly. Do you love her enough to die for her? Because that's what you're about to do. I already am. Kieran replies without hesitation. I've been dead from the moment they chained her up to watch this. Zephyr nods, as if this answer satisfies him. Then perhaps you'll also be willing to kill for her. The question hangs in the air like smoke. I see Kieran's eyes sharpen, hope beginning to war with resignation in their depths. What are you offering? Marcus demands, finally finding his voice again. This is pack justice. You have no right to interfere. I have every right, Zephyr replies calmly. As I said, this is disputed territory. The Silverwood Pack's alpha is dead. Killed, I'm told, resisting Marcus Blackthorn's coup. Under the old laws, that makes this land unclaimed until a rightful heir steps forward, or a new alpha proves himself in combat. Marcus's face is a mask of rage. I am the new alpha. I claim the position by right of strength. Strength? Zephyr laughs, and the sound is like ice cracking on a winter lake. You killed a sleeping man in his bed, Marcus. You took power through treachery and fear. That's not strength, that's cowardice. The accusation hangs in the air. I see several pack members nodding, and I realize that not everyone believes Marcus's version of events. There are those who know the truth, who've been waiting for someone brave enough to speak it. However, Zephyr continues, I'm not here to debate the legitimacy of your claim. I'm here to offer an alternative. He turns back to me, and I see something calculating in those winter eyes. Something that tells me this entire confrontation has been planned, orchestrated, that the Alpha King didn't simply stumble upon our execution by chance. Alara Nightshade, he says, using my mother's surname for the first time. You have a choice to make. I can claim you under family protection, take you back to my territory, and ensure your safety. Your mate will die, but you'll live, and you'll never want for anything. My heart sinks. It's a generous offer, more generous than I have any right to expect from a relative I've never met. But the thought of living without Kieran, of spending the rest of my life knowing I chose safety over love. Or, Zephyr continues, and his smile is sharp as a blade, you can claim your birthright. What birthright? The Nightshade line is royal, Alara. We are the original alphas, the first wolves to gain human form, the bloodline from which all others spring. That makes you not just pack nobility, but supernatural royalty. And royalty has certain privileges. He begins to pace, and I notice that he moves with the fluid grace of someone who's equally comfortable on 2 legs or 4. One of those privileges is the right of vengeance. When a member of the royal bloodline has been wronged, they may demand satisfaction. Not through the courts, not through negotiation, but through combat. My pulse quickens. What kind of combat? Single combat between champions, Zephyr explains. You would choose a fighter to represent you. If that fighter wins, you claim leadership of this pack and the right to dispense justice as you see fit. If he loses, he shrugs. Well, then Marcus keeps his stolen throne, and you and your mate die together. The offer is tempting and terrifying in equal measure. A chance to save Kieran, to reclaim our pack from Marcus's tyranny, to make him pay for everything he's taken from us. But it's also a massive gamble. If our champion loses, we both die, and Marcus emerges stronger than ever. Who would be my champion? I ask. Zephyr's smile widens. Why, your mate, of course, assuming he's willing. I look at Kieran, and I see the fire kindling in his eyes. He knows as well as I do that this might be our only chance, our one shot at turning the tables on the man who destroyed our lives. I accept, he says without hesitation. I'll fight as Alara's champion. No, Marcus snarls. I won't be bound by some ancient law. This is my pack, and I rule by modern strength, not outdated traditions. Zephyr's expression doesn't change, but the temperature drops another 10 degrees. When he speaks, his voice carries the authority of centuries. The right of vengeance supersedes all other claims, Marcus Blackthorn. It is older than your pack, older than your bloodline, older than your ambition. You can accept the challenge and risk losing everything in honest combat. Or you can refuse and face me personally. The threat is unmistakable. Marcus might be arrogant, but he's not stupid. He knows that fighting an Alpha King is suicide, and even if he somehow won, he'd face the combined wrath of every pack in the Northern Territories. Fine, he spits. I accept the challenge, but I choose my own champion as well. Of course, Zephyr agrees smoothly. It's traditional for the defending party to have representation. Who will stand for you? Marcus looks around the courtyard, and I see his gaze settle on the Bloodclaw executioner. The man is a mountain of muscle and scars, easily twice Kieran's size, with the cold eyes of someone who's killed more people than he can count. Gareth Bloodfang, Marcus announces. Alpha of the Bloodclaw Pack's warband. My heart sinks. Kieran is strong, skilled, and determined, but he's been imprisoned for 5 weeks. He's weak from poor food and brutal treatment, while Gareth is fresh and well-fed, and carries weapons designed to kill werewolves. Zephyr seems unconcerned by the choice. Very well. The combat will be to the death, with no quarter asked or given. The winner claims the right to rule this pack and determine the fate of all present. He raises his hand, and power ripples outward from him like heat waves. I invoke the ancient laws of combat by the authority vested in me as Alpha King of the Northern Territories. Let none interfere, let none show mercy, and let the moon goddess judge the righteous. The words seem to hang in the air, glowing with an inner light that burns itself into reality. This is more than ceremony. This is magic, binding and absolute. The executioner's platform is quickly cleared, becoming an impromptu fighting ring. Kieran's chains are removed, and I watch as he rolls his shoulders, working feeling back into muscles that have been bound for too long. He's thinner than I remember, his face gaunt from weeks of poor food. But there's something in his eyes that gives me hope. The same look he wore when he stood up to Marcus the first time. The expression that told me my mate would rather die fighting than live kneeling. Gareth steps into the ring with casual confidence. He's stripped to the waist, revealing a torso covered in ritual scars and tattoos that tell the story of his kills. In his hands, he carries 2 curved blades, their edges gleaming with the telltale sheen of silver. Not enough to poison him through his skin, but more than enough to prevent supernatural healing if he manages to cut Kieran. "Last chance," Marcus calls, out, his voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent courtyard. "Submit now, and I'll make your deaths quick." Kieran doesn't even glance in his direction. His attention is focused entirely on me, and in his eyes, I see 8 years of love, of shared dreams, of quiet moments that have sustained us through every hardship. "For Ilara," he says simply, and shifts. The transformation is fluid despite his weakened condition. One moment there's a man, thin and battered but determined. The next, there's a wolf the size of a small horse, his fur midnight black with silver streaks along his muzzle that speak of his bloodline. His eyes, still that warm brown I love, are fixed on his opponent with predatory intensity. Gareth grins, revealing teeth filed to points in the bloodclaw tradition. "I was hoping you'd shift," he says. "Wolves are so much more fun to carve." The first clash is brutal and swift. Gareth's blades whistle through the air where Kieran's head was a split second before. My mate is fast, faster than his condition should allow. But Gareth has reach and weapons, and the cruel experience of 100 fights. Silver meets claw in a shower of sparks. Kieran dances back from a thrust that would have opened his throat, countering with a swipe that tears through Gareth's thigh. First blood to my mate, but the wound is shallow, barely more than a scratch. They circle each other, predator and predator, each looking for an opening. Gareth feints left, then comes right with both blades. Kieran leaps, clearing the attack entirely, and his jaws snap closed inches from Gareth's face. The crowd gasps, but the Bloodclaw warrior doesn't even flinch. "Good," Gareth purrs. "I like a challenge." The fight continues, a deadly dance of blade and fang. Kieran has the advantage of speed and agility, but Gareth has endurance and weapons. Slowly, inevitably, my mate begins to accumulate cuts. Nothing fatal, but silver poisoning is cumulative. Each wound weakens him a little more, slows him a fraction of a second. I want to scream, to cheer, to do something other than stand helplessly and watch the man I love bleed for my freedom. But I can feel Zephyr's eyes on me, feel the weight of his attention like a physical thing. "He's losing," I whisper, not caring who hears. "Yes," Zephyr agrees quietly. "Your mate is brave and skilled, but he's been weakened by imprisonment while his opponent is fresh. The outcome is mathematically certain." My heart breaks a little more. "Then why did you offer this? Why give us false hope?" Zephyr doesn't answer immediately. When he finally speaks, his voice is thoughtful. "Tell me, cousin. What do you know about your mother's death?" The question seems to come from nowhere. She died in a hunting accident when I was 3. A rogue bear attacked her patrol. Zephyr's expression is unreadable. And your father never remarried? Never sought comfort elsewhere? No. He said she was his one true mate, that he could never love another. Loyalty, Zephyr muses. A nightshade trait. We mate once, and we mate for life. When we lose that mate, he trails off, watching as Kieran barely dodges another killing thrust. Well, some of us retreat from the world. Others become dangerous. On the platform, Gareth has backed Kieran into a corner. My mate's left flank is bleeding freely from a gash that runs from shoulder to hip, and his breathing is labored. He's running out of time, and we both know it. Your mother didn't die in a hunting accident, Alara, Zephyr says suddenly. She was murdered, poisoned by rivals who feared her growing influence in the Northern Territories. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I spent 3 years investigating her death before I could prove it. By then, her killers had scattered, gone into hiding. I've been hunting them ever since. His pale eyes fix on me, and there's something ancient and terrible in their depths. The last of them joined the Bloodclaw Pack 2 years ago, changed his name, took new scars to disguise his appearance, but I never forget a scent. My blood runs cold. You mean... Gareth Bloodfang is actually Connor Ravencrest, the man who murdered your mother. Zephyr's smile is sharp as winter wind. I thought you might like to know that before your mate kills him. I stare at him in shock. Kieran can't win. You said so yourself. I said the outcome was mathematically certain based on their current states, Zephyr corrects. But mathematics don't account for everything. As if on cue, something changes in the fight. Kieran has been steadily retreating, playing defense, letting Gareth tire himself with aggressive attacks. It seemed like desperation, but now I realize it was strategy. The Bloodclaw warrior is breathing hard, sweat streaming down his face despite the cold. His attacks are a fraction slower, his guard a little lower, and Kieran strikes. He comes in low and fast, inside the reach of those silver blades. His jaws close on Gareth's sword arm, and I hear bone crunch. The warrior screams and tries to stab downward with his offhand, but Kieran is already moving, releasing the arm and lunging for the throat. Gareth throws himself backward, barely avoiding the killing bite, but he's off balance now, stumbling. Kieran doesn't give him time to recover. He presses his attack, all teeth and claws and primal fury, driving the larger man back step by step. How? I breathe. Kieran Ashwood was trained by the old masters, Zephyr explains, still watching the fight with clinical interest. He knows that sometimes the only way to win is to make your opponent think they're winning first. Gareth grew overconfident, began to show off for the crowd. That was his mistake. The end comes suddenly. Gareth tries one last desperate combination, both blades seeking Kieran's heart. But my mate isn't there anymore. He's slipped under the attack, inside the reach of the weapons, and his jaws close on Gareth's throat. There's a wet tearing sound, then silence. Kieran stands over his fallen opponent, blood matting his dark fur, breathing hard but victorious. Around the courtyard, the crowd is dead silent, staring in shock at the impossible reversal they've just witnessed. Then someone begins to clap. It's slow, deliberate applause, and it takes me a moment to realize it's coming from Zephyr. The Alpha King steps forward, his pale eyes bright with something that might be approval. Well done, he says, his voice carrying clearly in the silence. A victory worthy of song. Kieran shifts back to human form, swaying on his feet but refusing to fall. His gaze finds mine across the courtyard, and the love in his eyes is so intense it takes my breath away. For you, he mouths, and I feel tears streaming down my face. The combat is concluded, Zephyr announces formally. By ancient right and trial by combat, I declare Alara Nightshade the rightful ruler of the Silverwood Pack, with all the privileges and responsibilities that entails. The crowd stirs, uncertain murmurs rippling through the gathered werewolves. They're looking at me with a mixture of awe, fear, and something that might be hope. I realize that I'm no longer just Kieran's mate, or a lost member of the Nightshade bloodline. I'm their alpha now. Marcus steps forward, his face twisted with rage. This is impossible. I won't recognize... He doesn't get to finish the sentence. Zephyr moves faster than my eyes can follow, and suddenly Marcus is suspended 3 feet off the ground, the Alpha King's hand wrapped around his throat. You lost, Zephyr says conversationally. Your champion is dead, your claim is forfeit, and your life belongs to the new alpha of this pack. I'd suggest you start begging for mercy. He releases his grip, and Marcus crumples to the ground, gasping for air. When he looks up, it's not at Zephyr, but at me. There's terror in his eyes now, the dawning realization that the woman he tormented, the omega of no significance he'd planned to break, now holds his life in her hands. I walk toward him, my chains long since fallen away, discarded by Zephyr's casual magic. Each step feels like walking toward my destiny, toward the woman I was always meant to be but never had the chance to become. Please, Marcus whispers as I stop in front of him. Alara, please. I was only trying to make the pack stronger. Everything I did for the good of... You murdered my alpha in his sleep, I interrupt, my voice carrying clearly across the courtyard. You staged a coup based on lies and fear. You tortured my mate and forced me to watch his planned execution. I lean down, bringing my face level with his. Tell me, Marcus, what mercy did you show others? He opens his mouth, but no words come out. We both know the answer. I straighten, addressing the crowd rather than the broken man at my feet. The Silverwood Pack has lived in fear for too long. We've forgotten what it means to be a community, a family. We've let strength become cruelty and leadership become tyranny. My voice grows stronger, more confident with each word. That ends now. Under my leadership, this pack will return to the old ways. We'll protect our young, care for our elders, and stand together against any threat. We'll be wolves again, not the rabid dogs Marcus tried to make us. Murmurs of approval ripple through the crowd. I see heads nodding, see the hope beginning to kindle in their eyes. But first, I continue, my gaze returning to Marcus. Justice must be served. I could kill him. It would be easy, and probably expected. He's shown no mercy to anyone else, taken lives without hesitation or regret. By every measure of werewolf law, he deserves death. But as I look down at him, I think of something Kieran once told me. The measure of an alpha isn't how they treat their enemies. It's how they choose mercy when they don't have to. Marcus Blackthorn, I say formally, I strip you of pack membership and banish you from these lands. You have until sunset to gather your belongings and leave. If you're found within our territory after dark, the sentence will be death. The crowd stirs. Some look disappointed. They wanted blood, wanted to see Marcus pay with his life. Others nod approvingly. It's a harsh sentence, but not a cruel one. Exile rather than execution. Marcus stares at me in shock. You're letting me live. I'm giving you a chance to become something better than what you are, I reply. What you do with that chance is between you and the moon goddess. He scrambles to his feet, clearly not believing his good fortune. For a moment, I think he might actually thank me. Instead, his face twists with the old arrogance, the familiar sneer. You weak little... He doesn't get to finish. Kieran appears beside me, moving with liquid speed despite his injuries. One hand closes around Marcus's throat, lifting the smaller man off his feet. My mate offered you mercy, Kieran says, his voice deadly quiet. I suggest you take it and leave before I decide you're not worth the generosity. Marcus nods frantically, and Kieran releases him. The former beta stumbles away, already shouting for his remaining loyalists to prepare for departure. Within minutes, the courtyard is emptying as people either follow Marcus into exile or approach me to offer their allegiance. That was well done, Zephyr says, appearing at my elbow. Firm, but fair. Your mother would be proud. I turn to face him, this relative I never knew I had, this alpha king who arrived like something out of legend to change the course of my life. Thank you. For everything. But I have to ask, why now? Why reveal yourself today? Zephyr is quiet for a long moment, his pale eyes distant. I told you I've been hunting your mother's killers. Gareth was the last, but not the most important. The poison that killed Lydia, the plan to murder her, that came from higher up the chain, from someone with real power. Who? The Bloodclaw Pack's true alpha, Gareth's master. Zephyr's smile is sharp and cold. A werewolf who's spent the last 20 years consolidating power, building alliances, preparing for a war that will reshape the supernatural world. My blood runs cold. And Marcus was allying with them. Marcus was a fool and a tool, Zephyr agrees. But yes, his alliance would have given the Bloodclaws a foothold in this territory. A base of operations for whatever they're planning. I feel the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders like a mantle. It's not enough to be alpha of the Silverwood Pack. I'm now part of something much larger, much more dangerous. What do you need from me? I ask. For now? Nothing. Rebuild your pack, strengthen your defenses, learn to lead. But when the time comes, when the Bloodclaws make their move... Zephyr's eyes meet mine, and I see the same determination that I've always admired in Kieran. I'll need allies I can trust. You'll have them, I promise without hesitation. Zephyr nods, satisfied. Good. And Alara? Your mother's greatest gift wasn't her strength or her royal bloodline. It was her ability to inspire others to be better than they thought they could be. He glances around the courtyard, where pack members are already beginning to clean up the mess left by Marcus's reign. I see that gift in you. Before I can respond, he's walking away, moving with that same fluid grace. At the ruined gates, he pauses and looks back. Take care of your mate, he calls. Good men who will fight to the death for love are rarer than you might think. Then he's gone, disappearing into the forest like smoke on the wind. I turn to find Kieran watching me, his brown eyes warm with pride and love. He's still bleeding from a dozen cuts, still swaying with exhaustion, but he's alive. We're both alive and we're free. So, he says, stepping close enough that I can feel the heat radiating from his skin. My mate is an alpha now, a queen even. Your mate, I agree, reaching up to cup his face in my hands, is also madly in love with her champion. He leans into my touch, and for a moment we're just Kieran and Alara again. Not alpha and champion, not survivors of a coup, just two people who've found their way back to each other against impossible odds. We need to get you to the healers, I murmur, my fingers tracing the edge of one of his deeper cuts. Some of these need stitching. In a minute, he says, his arms coming around me despite his injuries. I just need to hold you for a minute. I thought, when they dragged me away that night, I thought I'd never get to do this again. I melt into his embrace, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my chest. The mate bond hums between us, stronger now than it's ever been, as if our shared trauma has forged it into something unbreakable. Never again, I whisper against his neck. I swear to you, Kieran. Never again will anyone separate us. My queen. He murmurs, and there's something reverent in his voice that makes my breath catch. My fierce, brilliant queen. The title still feels strange on my tongue, but I'm beginning to understand what it means. Not just power, but responsibility. Not just the right to command, but the duty to protect. Over the next few hours, the magnitude of that duty becomes clear. Pack members approach me in a steady stream, some offering loyalty, others seeking guidance, all looking to me to somehow repair the damage Marcus has done to our community. The stories they tell make my heart ache. Families torn apart by suspicion and fear. Young wolves beaten for asking questions. Elders cast out for remembering the old ways too fondly. The Silverwood pack I once knew, the community that raised me, that celebrated my mating to Kieran 8 years ago, has been systematically dismantled and rebuilt in Marcus's image. But underneath the fear, I sense something else. Hope. Relief. The bone-deep exhaustion of people who've been holding their breath for too long and can finally exhale. We'll rebuild, I tell them, over and over. We'll heal. We'll remember what it means to be pack. By sunset, Marcus and his remaining loyalists have vanished into the forest, taking nothing but the clothes on their backs. I feel no satisfaction in their departure, only a grim awareness that the real work is just beginning. Kieran emerges from the healing lodge with his worst wounds stitched and bandaged, though he'll carry the scars for the rest of his life. He finds me on the steps of what used to be Marcus's headquarters, staring out at the forest where my cousin disappeared hours earlier. "Regrets?" he asks, settling beside me despite the obvious pain the movement causes. "About Marcus?" "No." I lean against his shoulder, careful of his injuries. "About everything else?" "Too many to count." "Such as?" I'm quiet for a long moment, organizing my thoughts. I keep thinking about my mother, about the family I never knew I had. Zephyr said she was murdered when I was 3, but my father told me it was an accident. How many other lies did he tell me? How many years did I spend thinking I was alone when I had a whole bloodline out there? Kieran's arm tightens around me. "Your father was protecting you. If he'd acknowledged the Nightshade connection, it would have made you a target." Maybe. Or maybe he was just ashamed of marrying above his station. The bitterness in my voice surprises me. Maybe it was easier to let everyone think his mate was nobody special. "Hey!" Kieran turns to face me, his brown eyes serious. "You are not nobody special. You never were. Royal bloodline or not, you're the strongest person I know." I want to believe him, but the revelations of the day have shaken me more than I care to admit. For 25 years, I've known exactly who I am. Alara Moonwhisper, daughter of a drunk and a dead woman, mate to the pack's former second-in-command, content to live quietly on the edges of werewolf society. Now I'm Alpha Alara Nightshade, cousin to a king, leader of a broken pack, and apparently part of some larger conflict I don't understand. The transformation feels too rapid, too complete. Like I've been wearing a mask my whole life and only now realized it. I'm scared, Kieran. I admit quietly. What if I'm not ready for this? What if I make the wrong choices and people get hurt? Then you'll learn from your mistakes and do better next time, he replies without hesitation. That's what good leaders do. And if I can't? If I fail? Then I'll be right beside you when you do. His hand finds mine, our fingers interlacing in a gesture that's as familiar as breathing. For better or worse, remember? I didn't fight my way back from the dead just to abandon you now. The simple certainty in his voice steadies me. Whatever challenges lie ahead, I won't face them alone. The mate bond that Marcus tried to sever by killing Kieran has emerged stronger than ever, an unbreakable connection that anchors me to the person I used to be, even as I evolve into someone new. There's something else, I say after a while. Something Zephyr told me before he left. Kieran waits patiently while I gather my thoughts. Gareth, the executioner you killed, he wasn't just some hired muscle. He was Connor Ravencrest, the man who murdered my mother. Zephyr has been hunting him for 20 years. Kieran goes very still. You mean... I mean my mother's death wasn't random. It was assassination, and whoever ordered it is still out there, still dangerous. I turn to meet his eyes. The Bloodclaw Pack isn't just another rival territory, Kieran. They're part of something bigger, something that involves my family, my bloodline. The implications hang heavy between us. Being alpha of the Silverwood Pack was already a monumental responsibility. Now I'm learning that I've inherited something much more complex, a legacy of violence and political intrigue that stretches back decades. We'll face it together, Kieran says finally. Whatever comes next, we'll handle it. Even if it means war? His smile is grim but determined, especially if it means war. I've got some frustrations to work out after 5 weeks in Marcus's dungeon. Despite everything, I find myself laughing. It's a short, bitter sound, but it's real. You're insane. You know that? Sanity is overrated, he replies, pressing a kiss to my temple. Besides, someone has to keep my new alpha in line. The casual way he says my alpha sends a thrill through me that has nothing to do with power and everything to do with the way his voice drops when he's thinking about claiming me. But before I can explore that particular train of thought, Morena appears at the bottom of the steps. Alpha Alara, she says, and the formal address still sounds strange from the elderly healer who used to scold me for tracking mud through the pack house. There are matters that require your attention. I sigh, the brief moment of normalcy evaporating. What kind of matters? Territory disputes with neighboring packs. Trade agreements that Marcus suspended. Young wolves who've reached mating age but haven't been properly introduced to potential partners from allied groups. Morena's expression is apologetic, but firm. The business of leadership doesn't pause for personal recovery, I'm afraid. She's right, of course. Being alpha means more than making dramatic speeches and dispensing justice. It means handling the thousands small decisions that keep a pack functioning, the endless bureaucracy of supernatural politics. I'll be right there, I say, though every instinct screams at me to stay here with Kieran, to hold on to this moment of peace before diving back into the chaos. Elara. Morena hesitates, then continues in a softer voice. For what it's worth, I think you'll make a fine alpha. Your instincts are good, and your heart is in the right place. The rest can be learned. It's a small comfort, but a real one. Morena has served 3 alphas in her long life. She knows what she's talking about. The next several hours blur together in a haze of meetings, decisions, and diplomatic correspondence. I discover that running a pack involves far more paperwork than anyone ever tells you. Trade agreements with human businesses who unknowingly employ werewolves. Territorial boundaries that must be regularly renegotiated. Marriage contracts between young wolves from different packs. It's overwhelming, but Kieran stays close, offering advice when I need it and silent support when I don't. His presence beside me feels right in a way that goes beyond the mate bond. We work well together, balancing each other's strengths and weaknesses. As midnight approaches, I finally call an end to the official business. The pack house has been cleaned of Marcus's belongings, his personal guards replaced with wolves I know I can trust. It's a start, though rebuilding trust will take much longer than redistributing furniture. Come on, Kieran says, taking my hand. You need sleep. He leads me to the alpha's quarters, my quarters now, though the thought still feels surreal. The rooms are larger than our old cabin, furnished with heavy wooden furniture that speaks of tradition and permanence. Marcus's scent has been scrubbed away, replaced with cedar and sage, but I can still feel the weight of history in these walls. It's temporary, I say, more to convince myself than him, until we can build something new. It's home, Kieran corrects gently. Our home. And we'll make it into whatever we need it to be. He's right, as he so often is. Home isn't a place. It's the person you choose to share your life with. Everything else is just details. I turn to face him, really looking at him for the first time since the fight ended. The worst of his injuries have been healed, but exhaustion lines his face, and I can see the toll the past few weeks have taken. He's lost weight, gained new scars, aged in ways that have nothing to do with time. I almost lost you, I whisper, the words catching in my throat. But you didn't, he replies, his hands coming up to frame my face. I told you I'd find a way back to you. I kept that promise. How? In the dungeon during those weeks, how did you survive it? Kieran's smile is soft and achingly tender. I thought about you. About this moment when I'd get to hold you again. About the life we'd build together when this was all over. His thumbs brush across my cheekbones. I survived because I had something worth surviving for. The tears come then, 5 weeks worth of fear and pain and desperate hope finally finding release. I cry for the man I thought I'd lost, for the pack that suffered under Marcus's rule, for the mother I never knew, and the family I'm only now discovering. Kieran holds me through it all, his strong arms a shelter against the storm of emotion. When the tears finally stop, I feel lighter somehow, as if I've been carrying a weight I didn't know was there. Better? He asks. Better, I agree. But I think I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. He nods, waiting. Do you regret it? Standing up to Marcus, fighting against him even when you knew it would lead to this? If you could go back, knowing what you know now. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. He interrupts before I can finish the question. Alara, look around you. Look at what we've accomplished in one day. Marcus is gone. The pack is free. You're alpha, which means you can protect people the way you've always wanted to. How could I regret that? Even if it means we're targets now? Even if the Blood Claw pack comes for us? Especially then. His expression grows fierce, predatory. Let them come. We'll be ready. I study his face, looking for any sign of doubt or reservation. I find none. Kieran has always been a protector, someone who puts others before himself without question or hesitation. It's one of the things I love most about him, and one of the things that terrifies me most as well. Promise me something, I say. Anything. Promise me you won't try to sacrifice yourself for me again. No more heroic gestures, no more throwing yourself in harm's way to keep me safe. If we're going to do this, if we're going to lead this pack and fight whatever's coming, we do it together, as equals. Kieran is quiet for a long moment, and I can see him wrestling with the request. His protective instincts run deep, coded into his DNA as surely as his ability to shift. Asking him not to protect me is like asking him to stop breathing. I can't promise I'll never put myself at risk for you, he says finally. It's not in my nature. But I can promise I won't make unilateral decisions about our safety. If there's danger, we'll face it together. We'll make choices together. It's not everything I wanted, but it's more than I expected. That's enough. For now. He leans down and kisses me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. It tastes like home, like safety, like a future that's finally within reach. I love you, he murmurs against my lips. I love you too, I reply. My mate, my champion, my partner in all things. Forever. Forever. Outside, the moon rises full and bright over the Silverwood territory, casting silver light through the windows of our new home. Somewhere in the forest, Zephyr is already traveling back to his own lands, carrying news of the day's events to courts and councils I've never heard of. Somewhere else, the Bloodclaw pack is planning their next move, plotting revenge for their fallen executioner and their failed alliance. But here, in this moment, there is only peace, only love, only the quiet certainty that whatever comes next, we'll face it together. I think of my mother, the royal daughter who gave up everything to mate with a common wolf. I think of the choices she made, the love she chose, the daughter she died protecting. I hope, wherever she is, she's proud of what I've become. I think of the pack sleeping safely in their beds tonight, free from fear for the first time in months. Of young wolves who will grow up knowing they can speak their minds without retribution. Of elders who can share the old stories without being branded as troublemakers. This is what we fought for. This is what we won. And tomorrow, when the sun rises on our first day as the new leaders of the Silverwood Pack, we'll begin the real work of healing and rebuilding. We'll strengthen our defenses, forge new alliances, and prepare for whatever challenges the future holds. But tonight, we rest. Tonight, we remember what we're fighting for. Tonight, we are home.